Okay, everybody. We are here with Anna, and she's going to give us a rundown of what her experiences have been as of... When did this start, Anna?
3 weeks ago.
Did you notice anything before that, or just...
Yeah. And since we moved in.
Since you moved in.
Mm-hmm.
And you felt like there were... I hate to say basic energies in the house prior to the negative.
Yeah, just regular stuff. Didn't feel bad.
What kind of things would go on though?
It was pretty routine. I felt she would walk through the back door, come in the house, walk down the hallway, peek her head around the bathroom door into our bedroom, and then she'd walk back to the living room and dissipate. And it was pretty regular. A few of my friends and family have seen her.
Okay, so pretty much harmless. Just kind of doing a walkthrough, walk out, done deal. Anything else beyond that?
My wall, where I don't know where it connects to, there was a constant knocking. And it was about 5 knocks every time.
Particular time of day or night?
11 o'clock at night. Same time about the walking started. I was always 11 o'clock at night. It was always the same.
And just the knocks?
Just the knocks. Knocks and the walking.
Feel like the same energy to you?
No, but I mean, we have a lot of deceased grandmothers, so I chalked it up as that.
A curious question. Did any of them pass over at that time of night at 11 o'clock that you can recall?
That was kind of what was coming to my mind, that somebody may have passed.
I have no clue. I do know the woman who died in this house. She was very, very attached to it. And that's the room she died in.
And it could be her, but I don't feel that she would necessarily do anything to harm anyone, just checking on the house kind of thing.
Yeah, I never felt she was bad.
So then things progressed, and a few weeks ago got much more difficult.
Yes, the walking turned into running, and it was a very panic run. The baby started moving from different parts of the room. She's so little she can't move like that on her own.
She would be moved.
She would be moved.
Okay.
And I mean, she can barely hold herself up, so there's no way she did that on her own. Things would get moved around the house a lot more frequently. The kids started not sleeping, started getting more aggressive. Chalked it up as the whole COVID business being out of routine. And then came the cuts and the scratches on them. Thought, okay, it's them doing it to each other. Clipped their nails down to nothing. Still kept appearing.
Now, was this all of the kids that were being cut?
It was just the older two who sleep downstairs, where it's the most active.
And the downstairs has basically had been a garage and a basement and a greenhouse that's been converted over, correct?
Into a playroom and the kids' rooms.
Yeah.
So.
Was there anything down there particularly when you moved in?
No. The original owners sold the home to another family with a little girl, and that was her room too, same as my little girl. They lived here for 3 months before putting it on the market. And we bought it from them. They didn't even live here for a year.
That seems kind of fast, 3 months,
Really
doesn't
fast.
it?
That's barely getting your stuff moved in, much less put away.
Probably everything's still in boxes.
It was. They were out of here within a weekend.
Wow. So.
No explanation, no reason, just see you later, bye.
She was our realtor, and she offered to show us his house, and I fell in love with it. And they had already bought a new house, was in the process of moving. They were going to pay 2 mortgages. She said it's too far from work. So that was her reasoning for wanting to move.
And maybe. Just awfully quick. That's record time.
It was a little suspicious. And then the stuff we found in the garden kind of furthered the thought that the previous owner who died here was still here.
What'd you find?
We found giant conch shells hidden about 3 feet deep down. Beautiful, beautiful, bright pink conch shells. And I called her daughter and brought her in the home and handed him to her. And it was since then I stopped feeling her as much and someone else. And that got a little scary.
Mm-hmm. So, and it, we were talking briefly about doors opening. And within whatever your comfort measure is, if you want to briefly describe maybe over the course of the last 4 to 6 months, without, you don't have to go into any detail, do you feel, let me ask you this, do you feel like there have been events that could have been emotionally charged enough to open doors?
Definitely. I did have some pretty severe postpartum depression. It was extremely severe. Husband was gone all the time. I was by myself, and he came home from work. I handed him the baby. I grabbed the gun from the dresser, and I went to the backyard, and I sat in the backyard, and it was probably 1:45 a.m. And I just sat there with the gun cocked to my head for a good 10 minutes, bawling my eyes out, screaming at the lake, and then I unclicked it, popped the bullet out of the chamber, and walked up the stairs in the back patios and came back inside and went to bed.
Did you feel like you had thoughts that weren't your own during that? Things that you traditionally wouldn't know yourself?
It didn't feel right. That's all I can say, is it didn't feel right, because I've gotten close to attempting suicide multiple times since having the baby, and every time I feel like I'm monotone, not just voice, but in my head. Like there's nothing there. It's like you're on autopilot.
Is there emotion?
No. No emotion. None.
It's like a void.
Void, just complete void. And it was just 3 weeks ago I drove myself to the cliffs and just kept my foot on the brake. It was just void. And the only thing that snapped me back was my mom calling me. And she always knows when something's wrong with me.
And you talked about being more spiritually involved than maybe others around you, or at least in your own age group, or the norm. And do you feel like you're more susceptible to these things because of that?
I don't know if I'm susceptible or if I'm crazy, so it's kind of a debate.
Or just possibly more aware of the things that are in your environment.
I've been told 2 different things, that I'm a schizophrenic, and I've been told I have split personality, and then I have spiritual people who tell me that I'm more susceptible. But by doctors, I'm crazy, and I've gotten probably 50 different diagnoses, and different doctors telling me you're wrong, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, and no one can figure out what's going on with me.
When did this start for you? About how old?
3. About 3. I started seeing stuff in my room. I'm shaking. It still
okay?
scares me.
Give me one.
It still scares me. That hill I grew up on was terrifying.
Well, that sounds very familiar to thousands of other sensitive and psychic kids that we have come across over the course of time. It's extremely overwhelming when you're experiencing it, but later on you kind of figure out what's going on, and you can either learn to kind of shut it off or just
Excuse me.
manage it a little bit better. And you were talking about your postpartum. That's a terrible thing that a lot of women suffer with, and that high level of all of the different hormones creating this emotional cocktail, and it creates an environment for things that are kind of lurking in the fringes to come into that space and kind of poke and prod you along and have you think and do and hear and experience things that you otherwise wouldn't. And that can create its own doorway for things to come in and mess with you.
I was curious too, something that you had mentioned briefly was that there had been a traumatic death in the family. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
My mother was 3. That kind of triggered me into thinking, did it start in our family when this happened? Her mother sent her and her sister over to the neighbor's house and blew her head off.
Your mother's mother? So, a couple things that I'm picking up on. Number one, a lot of these things, and maybe we briefly talked about it, can be inherited.
I've heard that too. I've inherited it from her.
And, without knowing that conversation had come up between us before meeting. And so I find it interesting because I'm wondering if that's not attached to all of this.
One of the things that we had talked about amongst ourselves, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but scientifically they've already proven that when you're born, your DNA already holds 40 generations worth of memory. So the second you come out, you're already dealing with 40 generations deep worth of other people's experiences or good points
and person genetically, as to how far it goes.
So learning to navigate what is actually yours and what is actually residual from somebody else that you had nothing to do with, that's a challenge for anybody.
Doctors chalked up me being suicidal at the age of 4 was suicide tendencies are genetic due to my grandmother. And I told them I'm tired of monsters.
Well, and the thing, there's a lot that medical science doesn't know. Bridging science and medicine with the spiritual is always a challenge. I won't negate what medical science has to say. I just always know that there's more.
More to the story.
More to the story.
They can only explain what they can measure.
And nothing is ever identical. Nothing's ever cut and dry. But the feeling of that feels very important in this. And even biblically it says the sins of the father are passed on to the son. And I believe what's implied there is if we don't find a way to conquer our own demons, it can be. Not always. It can skip generations. It can do a lot of things. But the challenges that we have, if we don't find a way to meet them, overcome them, then there's a great likelihood that our children and or grandchildren may deal with that same thing on a genetic level because we haven't healed it. So I think you've dealt with a lot internally in coping with the combination of what you see and what doctors have to say and not knowing what the real truth is.
No, I feel crazy.
And I gave you my word we would work through some of that. I would work with you. But I don't feel like that's for anybody but you.
Yeah, and that's a very extreme internal tug of war, to try to cope and rationalize what you feel deep down inside compared to what somebody on the outside is trying to tell you should feel or should see or should hear. And everyone is so fast to slap a label on something without knowing the backstory to anything. There's a lot of things that are unspoken, unseen, that are extremely felt deeply.
Yeah. So, we're here to help. We're going to go through. We're going to, all the babies are gone and everything's a little quiet. We're going to go through and do a few things, if you want to walk along with, and we can just, if you have questions as we go.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping you pick up on someone, and I'm very interested to see if you are hearing or seeing anything that I have been, to just kind of reel me back to I'm not crazy. Someone else hears and sees this, and someone else feels this, so I'm like, thank God I'm not crazy. But it's been a long, long road, and since everything's picked up, people are now believing me because everyone's seeing it.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is that more people are experiencing more because the veil's growing thinner, so to speak, between these worlds. And so a lot of people, I feel, that have previously not had these experiences are probably beginning to, or have recently started to, and are looking for their own understanding as to what's going on.
Yeah, my husband didn't tell y'all about his experiences. He's still chalking it up as, oh, it was just a dream. I was sleeping. But we both have been seeing the same old man, and he saw him in the chair, his chair. Woke up and saw him standing over him.
When I was sitting here earlier, I felt him right behind me at this shelf. I mean, right behind me. And it didn't feel, it just felt more observing than anything else, and kind of knew not to act up at that moment, you know. And it's still daylight, it's still, you know, there's certain times of day with the moon and different things that are at play that are more helpful to those energies.
Earlier, before the camera was on, when we were downstairs in your daughter's room, what I was picking up down there in that space was an elderly woman, and it felt like a male presence that was probably in their mid-30s, and then I was feeling like just this negative something hovering over the air down in that space there.
But it wasn't in the room as much as it was just
kind of like encompassing the space.
The space. You know, not so much like it would be standing in front of us, but like it was just hovering, for lack of a better way to put it.
A lot has happened 3 weeks ago that could have triggered it. A lot.
Now, you sent me pictures. Talk to me about what happened with your little one.
That was 2 Saturdays ago. Was it 1 Saturday ago? I've lost track of time. I don't get sleep. He came upstairs saying, my head hurts, my head hurts. I said, oh, come here. And I went to rub his head. Bruises on the sides of his neck. Grown person finger bruises. And I was like, what happened? Because it couldn't have been his sister. She was in bed with us last night before we had them sleeping upstairs. Every night, between 2:30 and 3:30, she was coming up to our bed crying and screaming and climbed in bed with us. So I know she wasn't her. She was in bed with us. And I asked him, I said, Nathan, what happened? He said, Ghost in TT's room did it. And I was floored. I didn't know how to respond to that. And he's just clawing himself. I don't know if he's clawing himself or something's doing it, but he doesn't have any nails. So doctor said that it's just his regular hyperdermographia, which...
You think it's nerves?
Well, see, that's what hyperdermographia is. It's kind of like nerve triggers. You're allergic to yourself. And our skin is attacking itself.
But that typically doesn't create bruises and scratches. That just creates red spots.
Well, let's say even if he scratched, the bruising wouldn't make sense.
No, it would not create bruising. I've had this condition my whole life. I have the severest case of it that doctors have seen, and I've never had bruising like that. So I can't explain it at all. It's just been different things. He's been talking about murdering his sister. He wants to shoot her dead.
And he's
He's
three.
3.5 years old. These are thoughts that would never occur
to most.
in a 3-year-old mind.
No.
I've never met a 3-year-old that's thinking that way.
No. He wants to drown TT. He wants to shoot her dead.
Now, have you seen behavioral changes with your oldest?
Yes.
Your daughter?
Yes. Just in the last 3 weeks, she's very secluded. As she spends a lot of time downstairs, she'll stay down there. She will not come up till we yell at her to come up. And then she refuses to go downstairs.
Let me tell you what Ken and I picked up on. Although it physically attacks your son, we feel that there's some kind of an, most negative energies, let me back up, won't attach to something unless they have a sense of right and wrong, because there's nothing really there to work with.
So
Mentally,
if you're still young, basically the age of innocence, that you don't really have that rational, conscious thinking of making choices that have consequences. But once you reach a certain age, 6, 7 years old, which is typical, that's the age of accountability.
Accountability is what they call it.
That means you have enough sense at that point to know the difference between right and wrong action.
You would know it's wrong to hit your brother
And
or
that
sister.
seems to be the age range where things can attach to.
So we're feeling like it's wanting, and I'm intuiting part of this as I go. So if I look off, it's because I'm listening. But what I feel is that it's more of a want to than something that's a done deal. It doesn't feel like a done deal. Nothing's ever a done deal like that. But the desire is, it's trying to manipulate your daughter's energy
When she goes
and
down,
her thinkability.
when she goes downstairs and she gets into that space, after a short time, it's almost like she's hypnotically absorbed into that space until you bring her up and
I feel like
break
you can almost see it in her eyes after she's been down there for a while, kind of by
that
herself.
in a hazy, glazed over kind of space. And once you bring her up and change the atmosphere, change the activity that's going on, she changes her whole personality.
Yeah, gets back to giggly.
So this isn't to instill more fear. This is so that we're all aware of what we're dealing with. Because light is awareness. Light is information. Light is strength. You can't fight anything if you don't know.
Once you become aware of something and can see something, then it has no power over you anymore.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was feeling somebody right behind me.
I was just gonna say, do you feel her?
Yeah. It's okay. She's good. I'm kind of used to it. But I just felt her just kind of. I feel a hand on my shoulder. And she feels like she's very concerned for your family, and she also feels she's here to support you. She's here to support us. She's here to try. I hear to make things right. I don't feel like she's had anything in making them wrong, but whatever she can do, which is really neat, whatever she can do to help, she's gonna do it. I mean, she feels fierce in her little energy. You know.
I don't physically see him. I see him in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But I know she's there.
I just felt, it was just like a breeze. Boom.
And I feel him standing here.
Yeah, and I will not say that what I feel is, and you may have a different interpretation, so I'm looking for feedback. I'm not feeling demonic as per what we know to be true demons. But I feel him to be more along the lines of a miniature version of that, more of a daemon, which is a little different than a demon.
Now, I've been doing research nonstop these last 3 weeks. Nonstop. So what I got somewhat of an understanding is that when people pass and they don't feel it was justified, or they feel something was done wrong to them that wasn't their time, they sort of morph into something else in the spirit world and get more evil and aggressive.
Yes.
So
They
it's not
can
a
go
demon,
into a very aggressive,
Yes.
dark state.
If they're ugly, or have a streak of ugly when they go, sometimes that's just accentuated tenfold because it's their true heart. It's their heart that becomes, your heart, your consciousness, who you are here is what goes with you when you pass.
I didn't feel it was demonic. I do feel evil, but I don't feel demonic. I've seen and I've felt those other things, and I don't feel that here.
And I don't, when I say I don't feel evil, evil's a big word to me. I have felt evil. I have looked in the eyes of evil. And it reeks. It has a smell that can't really be described. I don't smell that.
Some people use the word malevolent, some people use the word sinister. I think when they
Sinister is a better word.
I think when they morph into that space of where they're bitter and angry, it just magnifies it larger than what we're used to dealing with on our human level. And
Can you
it's
get closer?
No, I'm okay.
You okay?
I'm good.
I'm
Just
feeling you.
just
Anything I can do at the moment?
no. I just
Okay.
need to stop thinking about the past and just calm down.
Okay.
so I think we have Grandma trying to play referee for all of this stuff that's running in and out and through
And the
here.
woman that passed here. I'm feeling both, like one's stronger than the other.
Mimi would be the strongest.
But I mean, this woman, there's a fierceness about her.
She's-
You're not messing with my ... You know, this one's a little more sublime.
The woman who passed here,
Concerned, but not as brave, not as determined.
we actually share a name. So we
That's-
share that.
There's a lot of power in that dot connecting like that. I mean, people don't realize, but names have resonance. Names vibrate to a certain resonance.
Yeah. But no, Mimi is hard, tough Caucasian chick.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't nothing getting by her. And she was in the room the day I had Eloise.
And I thought it was interesting. I'd like to show what we found on that dresser because it was from her, and it's backwards,
It's backwards, like
But
she wrote it
it's-
from the mirror.
but it's powerful, and it's full of love.
That's one of the subjects we'll touch on when we go downstairs, that Rachel and I both picked up on. That mirror has become somewhat of a doorway for other things beyond her to pass back and forth.
In feeling that piece of furniture when I walked in there, and just immediately, bam, you know, those two, but the dresser, the vanity is what we called it growing up.
That's
The
what I
vanity.
call it.
But you know, she may have inherited it. It may have been attached. Maybe she got it from somebody else that had, you know, energy absorbs into inanimate objects sometimes. And if it was something she loved, certainly, you know.
Well, like I said, there was a lot of things that happened that could have triggered this. 3 weeks ago, I did go to my great-grandmother's house. She's still kicking, 90 years old.
It's awesome.
But she gave me a lot of stuff to bring here because she was moving. And a lot of the stuff she had me bring here are 5 generations or older. And a dish that she gave me, 5 generations old, I broke the lid.
I know how I would have reacted, so I'm only laughing thinking of myself.
I bought so much different types of glue to fix it.
I'd be curious to see some of those items, or maybe we'll run the rods and see if there's something that man might be attached to.
Yeah, my grandfather. This tattoo on my wrist is hid for him. I was very, very close with him. He was my great-grandfather.
I'm talking about the challenge.
Yeah.
There might be a different object that wouldn't have been personal to them, but something they acquired.
I don't know.
But we'll test all that.
The dish I broke was my great-grandfather's grandmother's. So it was an heirloom from his side of the family.
And you did know your great-grandfather?
I did. We were very, very close. And then he got Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And that is the only time in my life I've seen someone who had passed. So he passed the same night I saw him. He sat on the edge of my bed and put his hand on my leg and he said, "I love you and I'm going home." Found out that morning he died that night. But we were extremely close, and when you were in the bedroom and you said you were feeling someone, his jean jacket was hanging up right there. So I was hoping it was him.
Okay.
I know that you guys are wanting to kind of talk and do a little bit of private conversation. I'm going to take the camera outside with me. I have got some stuff that I'm going to work on the outside of the house with. We're going to go around and seal up all of the exits spiritually, except for one, before we do the house cleansing later. And that way it blocks them from ever coming back in through those directions, and then we'll seal up the last door spiritually when we're done with the house cleansing. So I'm gonna leave you two to yourselves and
Leave me a east exit. I need an east exit.
okay.
They're heading back. They're heading back.
Okay. We'll take a pause for a second.
I love my
Okay, so I want to give an explanation to what I'm doing around the doors and windows outside. Before we do the house cleaning on the inside, the spiritual house cleaning, I have got basically my own version, my own blend of what would be typically known as a goofer dust. It's crushed red brick, charcoal, sulfur, saltpeter. It has got Dead Sea salts, cayenne pepper, garlic, the skin off of a copperhead snake all ground up into it, and graveyard dirt. And we draw a line at the base of each doorway and create a barrier with one door left open as an escape route. And then when we work through the house from the inside, we push everything to that door and then seal it up behind us. So that kind of gives you an explanation as to what we're going to do with the doorways outside. And a little bit goes a long way. It does not take very much. Alright, we've got several doors to do. We will pick this up in just a little bit. Alright, now I am down in the basement. That is the area that the children sleep in. And a lot of the pieces of furniture were inherited from the deceased's grandparents. And as you can see, she's had quite a challenge trying to keep up with this room that the young daughter sleeps in. And I'm going to show you this vanity mirror. They keep the TVs on constantly 24 hours a day to kind of drown out the sounds of continual sounds of footsteps, babies crying, banging on the wall, just discarnate voices that are everywhere. I'm going to see if I can turn this off. But this is the vanity dresser that we were discussing upstairs at the kitchen table. And the mother said when she was in here this morning, everything was cleaned up and picked up. And of course you've got to remember that these are first grader and pre-kindergarten, so you know they have a tendency to mess things up, but it is what it is at this moment. that photo that's on the wall there was something that was inherited from the grandmother. But this vanity, when she was in here this morning cleaning it up, she said this was not here. And that has appeared written. So when she was down here this morning cleaning up, she said that there was nothing on this vanity in the way of writing or otherwise. And when we got here this afternoon and came down to look, this was written on the dresser, and it is written backwards in perfect handwriting. It says, "Love Mimi and Pop Pop 2019," and this is 2020. Well, it was 2019, I believe, when the one passed. We are definitely going to seal up this mirror so it is no longer being used as a doorway. Now this has been kind of an ongoing project. They've been trying to remodel it, so you have to overlook a lot of the clutter aspect of the drywall and building materials and things that are sitting here and there. That area there with the sliding glass doors used to be a greenhouse that had skylights, but it's all been sealed up and closed. Now the 3-year-old's room, in stark contrast to the one we just looked at, is actually exceedingly neat for a 3-year-old. I'm not really seeing much of anything out of place other than he forgot to close the drawers when he got his clothes this morning and kicked his little blanket and sheet down on the end of the bed. But the energy in here is entirely different. It seems to target the 6-year-old. But it's somewhat of a maze out through here. We've got kind of a eerie little room under the staircase. And the bathroom. And every house has an unfinished room that's just a catch-all for excess. That there's so much stuff that's here that has either been left here by the deceased grandmother or handed down from other family members that have since passed over. This is actually a garage that's full of storage items. I'm gonna get back upstairs with the girls right now, and we're going to proceed with the next phase.
I just felt it take off.
Yeah, it's gonna run
He
around.
he just took off running.
It's gonna run around like a ping pong ball till we get all these rooms done.
I don't want to break anything.
And when you get done with that, we've got the lemon oil for the window sill and mark the mirror with the holy water. Let's close that little doorway up.
This is raw lemon juice to cleanse and go over the windows so they can't be used.
The citrine or the citrus is a natural repellent to the negative energies.
It's very cleansing. It's too clean for them. I don't know that I could get all the way up.
If you would, I'm going to step around you if you can hit these closet doors and the bedroom door with that. This corner of the house seems to be the focal point for the majority of it to spread outward from.
Red alert! Hope that's not an omen. Unless energies are feeling a little sense of emergency. So what I feel inclined to do actually is go around this too.
That's her painting.
The Cheshire Cat or the flowers?
The flowers. Well, the cat's from an anime. Would you mind taking this guitar with you?
That's fine.
Yeah, we can.
I don't know what else to do.
Okay. Your holy water is so sealed I can't
Well,
use
I
it.
blessed it and sealed it.
Boy, did you seal it. Okay, I'll hold this for a minute.
And people that watch our stuff don't realize that I'm an ordained minister.
Yeah,
Here you go.
both of us are. So I believe we're shut. I want you to test it.
I can feel the difference from over here already. It's just in
I
that,
got showered when it shut.
you know,
You want to step in and see how it feels to you? We'll keep you off.
I don't know, I think I'm still just shaking.
Yeah. Here, go ahead and step.
Oh no.
I haven't done the room door.
It does feel a little lighter.
Did you see something I missed?
The window.
Yeah.
It's not a sealed window. It goes all the way down.
Okay. What do you think about that window? It was catching me for a second.
It goes into the bar.
Well, you know, the thing about portals is that
sometimes it's because of the layer. Like the window could be acting as a magnifier.
She built that window so her daughters could sleep in here and see the greenhouse.
is this safe to pull out
Yes.
a little bit?
But the mirror won't stay still, but
Yeah. My grandmother had an old vanity, and it was like that.
do you think it's okay to leave here, or should I move it to where it's not facing?
I feel like it's shut.
Because I really want to move it over there.
May not be a bad idea because for some reason I was getting the feeling that that and these were playing together.
My grandmother
So that may
really
not be a
said,
bad idea.
No mirror facing window.
Yeah. I'm just thinking that.
Problem is you have a window on each side of this.
Yeah.
You got that internal greenhouse window and the outside window,
I
so
put up probably 12 different curtains, and they've all been ripped down.
On the window?
Yeah, you can see.
What
the
about on that
plug.
window?
You can see it's been screwed in.
What about possibly on this wall where the Cheshire Cat painting is, just turning it?
I mean, I can do that. But, I mean, I've screwed
I'm kind
bars.
of feeling a cover on this window that doesn't go anywhere.
Well, we're going to get rid of that room, actually.
But before that, if you can just put a drape behind the dresser, I think it's going to help.
My little brother's coming to stay with us next week, and he is not a human, he is a raccoon. And that's his room. So,
And
I'll have to hang it up in her room.
Did you have a chance to show the message?
yes, I showed the message that appeared on the dresser.
Okay.
That fan does not turn off.
Okay.
It's actually good with the fan on. It helps it to
The energy in
circulate
here
that.
actually is good. By comparison.
The only old thing in his room is that dresser. That was Mimi's as well.
Yeah, there's nothing in here that I feel is negative. Or not. Maybe in comparison to the other, but
I recently also hid rose quartz crystals everywhere in his room.
okay.
So if you check under every monkey, you'll find one.
I'm just going behind you.
I also hid blessed Indian heads that my friend gave me. I don't know much about that. So, just trying to get everything in.
Alright everybody, you get the idea of what we're doing room to room, and this is going to take a while because it's actually a very nice, very large house, so we'll bring you back in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Can you hear me? He's getting a little more faint, like he's actually voluntarily trying to move forward. So Anthony, just to confirm what you gave us earlier, are you willing to do that? Yes. You were confirming that you had taken your own life. Yes. Thank you. In your time here on Earth,
This is my question.
after all that, your time here was spent in great fear. Fear of abandonment. I know. You were physically abusive with Anna. Yes. Were you the one that left the bruises on little boy's neck? Yes. Have you been particularly attached to your daughter? The feeling I get is he would never do anything to hurt her. He doesn't realize some of what he's caused. He realizes now. You ready to go home? Okay, let's go. So, the last is this east window. I'm feeling it's important for you, at least mentally, if not verbally, to say goodbye to him. He really understands how difficult forgiveness is, but if you could at least say goodbye, his heart's very heavy with guilt. So even internally, if you can do that. He says thank you. Okay, Anthony. Let's go. Wait.
Air freshener.
She's waiting for love to be realized. I'll send her
It's been quite a day.
It's been a day. So, we intentionally did not film certain parts of our visit because there was activity with the little ones, children being around. It just, didn't feel right to involve them or take a chance of it involving them. We were able to have them leave, and that's when we did the majority of our work. With that being said, there was a point where I had the rods and the darker energy was coming through. It wasn't evil per se. It was very heavy, it was very dark, but not what I would personally consider evil. As it turns out, it was, I was feeling the energy of a young man, probably somewhere between 25 and 30 years old. We had the energy of a grandmother there. We had the energy of a grandfather there. And then there was just a wisp of another female energy, but it wasn't very strong. There's so much, I'm just trying to put it all in a box here. Earlier, the grandmother came through quickly, very strong, very protective, and very pleased that we were there. She felt small but fierce, and I really enjoyed her energy actually. When we were sitting outside a little bit later, that's when this young man came through, the darker of the energies. And I started describing him physically. What I saw was dark hair, and I would have said that it was pulled back in a ponytail, a dark jacket, blue jeans, and boots. The young lady confirmed, which I didn't know, but the young lady confirmed that one of the children, her father, was a young man by the name of Anthony that had committed suicide, but that he had been very physically violent, very manipulative, and it kind of took me aback because earlier this week, when we were at that public park area, an energy had come through and the name Anthony was mentioned. And I didn't really think too much of it. I thought, well, that's kind of coincidental, although I don't believe a lot in coincidence. It's not a name I hear often, and certainly not in the same week. But we had written down a lot of the words and communication that had come through that night. Part of that was why me, which I got a lot of the why me from this situation and from the mom. She was really struggling. Find Us, which in perspective, there was probably near to a 2-hour distance between them and us. The word count came up, and I'm not sure still what count meant, except that it was trying to help us pinpoint how many were being affected. As it turned out, it had given us 3. It just so happened there were 3 children in the family, but also 3 gone, and as it turned out, there were 3 specific deaths, 2 of which were suicides. It mentioned home. It mentioned need you. It mentioned embark, which it was quite a journey that we had to embark on. That word that night meant nothing to us. Grandmother had come through. Can't relax. And there was another named Jaden, and it so happened that one of the children, the name sounded very similar to that, without giving the name. So my thought, and I had to really work with this, but my thought was that someone was reaching out to us that night, appealing for our help then. And we just happened to be in a right spot for it. I'm not certain that it wasn't about this family. And perhaps the grandmother somehow had tuned into us.
Time and space have no relevance across the veil.
Ultimately, dimensionally, there is no such thing. And I think as human beings, even being in this work, I have to remember that. So it was beautiful to me that there was enough love there that this soul sought out help. The other word that came out was devil and psychopath, and his behavior was very psychopathic. She had mentioned that there had been some experience when they were young that she felt they had seen a demon. I don't know that that energy didn't cling to one or the other or both to some degree. So devil could easily be the influence, that caused him to be as violent as he was, that caused him to commit suicide. I'm not here to judge, but he was willing to communicate. He had a very regretful demeanor about him, to the point, at first it was, it's not my fault. Basically, the feeling was, it's not my fault that I turned out the way I was. And so there was some denial going on there for a little while, and had a lot of that, not aggression, but refusal for accountability. After talking a little bit more, hearing her say how she felt, suddenly he became very, I just want to say sorry for his actions. And he was willing to leave if she would just be willing to offer forgiveness or offer some understanding. I don't know if she was ready yet to do that, but he must have gotten what he was looking for enough to say goodbye, because I felt him leave. When we sealed that last window, I clearly in my mind heard him say, "I'm in, and thank you, and I'm okay."
Sometimes it's as simple as just being able to be heard a final time.
Yeah, and I really feel that his peace was reliant on being able to be heard. So I was grateful to be used in that regard by the universe if it gave his soul peace. I was also grateful, feeling that perhaps what we had gotten at that park wasn't something that had happened, but potentially something that could happen. One of the children, and I think one of the words that came through that night was marker, but one of the children had marks on their body from him, and perhaps that was what was trying to be, relayed, was that it was physically leaving a mark. I don't know if we ever get the totality of it until we're on the other side, but it did my heart some good to find out that perhaps we did find resolution for what we experienced at the park, and resolution hopefully for this family. The house felt good when we left. I do still think there's some challenges there, not by way of spirit, not by way of ghosts, but hopefully it can move forward now in another direction. But I'll be checking back with him to see how things are going. So thanks for coming with us.
If you or anyone you know are facing a similar situation or crisis that
Please reach out.
might need our help, I will put the email in the link and put the email in the video.
Yeah, please reach out. Don't feel like you're alone. Don't feel like you have to fight anything alone. I'm sure there are things that we can't help with, but normally, in my experience, if they're presented to us, normally we're able to help. So I hope you will like, share, subscribe, come with us again. What am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something. It's been a day. My mind is just... Thoughts, Kenny?
We will see you later as we travel into the veil.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good night.